Peace, family. Peace, family. So, yes, yes, yes. This is the moment that we've all been waiting for. Our good brother Alkebulan 44 will begin his presentation. Good brother, are you ready?
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
All right, let's get it.
All right. So, peace to the family. Um, for those who've been following me, know how I come with it. I'm delivering the science, and I've always expressed how I want our people to be just as passionate with the practical application of the science in connection to with the mythology and the real world issues. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna spin the block and bring it back to where we left off relative to the information that you guys are familiar with what I deliver. So with that being said, my presentation is titled Quantelligence, the Royal Script of Light Speed. Okay, so the Royal Script of Light Speed. A transmission of metaphysics, quantum biology, and sovereign reclaim, unlocking the ancient codes encoded in our DNA.
Reclamation. I'm sorry.
Reclamation. No, it's all good. Reclamation. I'm going to say that again. The Royal Script of Light Speed is a transmission of metaphysics, quantum biology, and sovereign reclamation, unlocking the ancient codes encoded in our DNA in the cosmic field. And for the family who's tapped in, like I said, this is going to be a deep dive on the science. And what makes it very interesting, is I'm going to tie it in to a very profound Christ-like figure that we're all familiar with, who unfortunately was unalive back in 2019. So you'll see the spin with that. But I want to give you, again, a practical way of actually demonstrating how to properly administer NIP with this science. So here we go. All right. Introduction to what is Quantelligence. What is Quantelligence? And again, for the family, this is a term that I came up with because, like I said, I like to talk about the quantum world, and I go deep into the quantum science to get people familiar with the internal aspect of who we are as a people. So Quantelligence. Quantelligence is the quantum intelligence of light that moves through space, time, and consciousness. It is the frequency of the royal script encoded in our DNA, a cosmic architecture merging quantum mechanics, spiritual sovereignty, and ancestral memory. Our DNA is not a mere static chemical structure. It's a holographic transmitter, a living library of encoded light that projects our being across dimensions. Okay, so with this presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a framework of law and thread it through science. And I want people to understand, like, there's a strategy behind why I'm teaching the way I am in this presentation. So, of course, if we're dealing with law, we're dealing with the left brain. When we're dealing with spirituality, we're dealing with the right brain. So this gives the people opportunity to synchronize both sides of the brain to get the whole picture. So that way you can see not only have we been governed by man-made laws, but what supersedes that is cosmic law. So what I'm going to do is break down the L, the A, and the W, and I'm going to thread the science all the way through it. So when we look at this word, we got law. And so law in reference to the L means land, the A represents air, and the W represents water. So you got land, air, and water. And a lot of the family might already be familiar with that, encryption when it comes to law. But like I said, you're going to get a broader perspective on the science of it. Okay, so this is the L, right? So L equals land, the body as the sovereign vessel and antenna. So right now we're talking about the physical body, the L and land in reference to law. So number one, common law plus land. In common law, land is the highest form of claim, a foundation for sovereignty. A allodial title grants supreme ownership with no higher authority. Without claim to land, one is considered lost at sea under maritime jurisdiction. Sovereignty begins by being rooted in land, body included. Number two, the physical body equals the land. Your body is your original estate, just as land is the grounding for your rights. In law, the body is your grounding in the bioelectric cosmos. In metaphysics, in the metaphysical terms, your flesh is land, your body is water, and your breath is air, the temple. So this gives you the juxtaposition of land as in law and land as a physical body. Okay, so we're all familiar with what took place, in California earlier this year regarding the fires. But
Yes, yes.
I want to give people the insight on what the fires really represented, because this is all going to tie in together nicely. So the fires in California. So the California wildfires were not just ecological disasters, they were covert geopolitical operations. These fires coincided with key celestial alignments and cosmic shifts that had the potential to realign the Earth's energetic meridian grid. Energetic recalibration. The Earth is entering a new galactic cycle, moving through a denser region of plasma and space. This has an electromagnetic effect on both consciousness and the ley lines, energetic meridians across the Earth. So that's what ley lines are. Ley lines are energetic meridians across the Earth. Ley lines and sacred sites. California, especially areas like Mount Shasta and coastal ranges, sites on the powerful ley line. Let me read that one more time. Ley lines and sacred sites. California, especially areas like Mount Shasta and coastal ranges, sites on powerful ley line intersections. These are natural energy highways the ancestors used to encode memories and culture. Like I said, this is going to be very important because, like we had seen in the news, again, we heard about the wildfires, we heard about what they were doing to the sacred sites, but it was very specific relative to not only law, but cosmic law as well, because we're dealing with time and we're dealing with ancient structures. Okay, so let's look and see what a allodial title is. So allodial title and reclaiming the land. So this is the law perspective of allodial title. So allodial title means absolute ownership, free from any government claim as Earth's frequency shift. The contracts built on maritime amity law, which presume us to be lost at sea, begin to dissolve in the energetic and lawful sense. The fires were a preemptive move to reset the land with new energy signatures through fire, destroy physical and vibrational memory stored in the land, whether it was temples, ancestral bones, buried relics, and sacred trees. Give me a second, family. Give me a second. What just happened? Let me go back. Okay. Let me read that again. Claim of ownership over land they knew was reverting to the original sovereigns, those tied to the blood. So just an overview again, what I'm getting at and what we'll continue to go into is allodial titles allowed the government to make claim over California. And this was predicated on the fact that they knew that the original people had ties to this specific land. And I want to go too much into it because we're going to segue nice and smooth into what I'm speaking about. But this is the concept of allodial titles in reference to the law aspect, but also to the reason why they were trying to make claim over California specifically. Sweet. Wait, give me 1 second. It's supposed to be the video that pulls up. 1 second.
Take your time, brother. We here. You good?
There we go. Okay. So there's a section in this video. It's about 10 minutes long. I want to play for you guys. This is a guy named Richard McDonald. He's been studying law for over 30 years, and he's been cracking a lot of codes relative to what we're speaking about. So there's a specific part that I must swing through, and I'm going to play for you guys. It's only about 10 minutes.
The future of your business is here. With Wix, get advanced AI.
Okay, give me 1 second. All right.
Somebody asked me about allodial title. They're always asking me that. Here's a book you should go read so you'll understand what they did. How do you like living in the Atlantic Ocean? Let's see. No, the Pacific Ocean. You're living in the Pacific Ocean right now. The book is called Texas Real Estate Law, 5th edition, by Prentice Hall. Okay? And if you go back to page where it is. Okay. All the land within the continental United States was predicated originally upon rock-solid land meridians. San Bernardino Meridian, Washington, D.C. Meridian. Everything was based off the Washington, D.C. Meridian in 1785. Okay? Because Washington, D.C. was the capital. All the meridians started from Washington, D.C. So in 18, to provide, and this is 1860, 1872, I think is when they changed this law here. Okay. Rather than using physical mounds based upon imaginary longitude and latitude lines. So the stars, imaginary. So they moved the meridian from a rock-solid Washington, D.C. We're going to use this imaginary line over here, and we're moving all the land over here. So actually, we're out in the Pacific Ocean right now, according to the original, if you use that. But you have to describe your meets and bounds, longitude and latitude, based on the Washington, D.C. meridian. That puts you right back on the land again. That's what it was done in 1785. In 1872, they used the Greenwich imaginary line. A fiction, you know what I mean? So everybody's using the Greenwich longitude and latitude. You follow me? But when you have your surveyor survey your land out to do allodial rights to your property, you have to tell them that they have to use the Washington, D.C. meridian as designed in 1785. No, they just moved it over. 100 years later, nobody's paid attention to it. And they did a whole treatise on that, imaginary lines.
Real estate book?
Yeah. See, they always tell you the truth, but most people don't want to read.
What do they say about the imaginary lines in there?
That's you call it imaginary lines. Rather than have a solid monument, they use imaginary lines. Yes.
You're paying off land and you don't own it yet, but it's obviously described. Can you ask them to re-describe it, or you have to wait till you own it?
No, you can re-describe it now, then as soon as it's paid off, then you can move it in allodial.
Ask the...
You'd have to have a surveyor.
surveyor to re-describe it.
Yeah, that pay the surveyor and have them redescribe it using the Washington DC meridian.
By the county recorder.
Right, of redescribing the property with the correct meets and bounds. You follow me?
Referring to a township, section and quarter sections, and that doesn't relate back to the meridian?
Originally it did. Originally it started out using the Washington DC meridian, but in 1872 rather, they changed it over and used the Greenwich imaginary lines. Yes.
So if one was to update a land patent, it would be in one's best interest to have it, have a surveyor come out and
redescribe it according to the Washington DC meridian. It's got to be paid for, and you better be a state citizen and know how to defend it. There's only one person I know that's got his land in allodial. He's got it completely in allodium in Colorado, and the sheriff won't even come on his property. Fishing game was chasing a poacher, and the poacher had shot a deer, and a deer ran onto his property, and the fishing game officer would not even come on his property to collect the carcass. He can't trespass on that land. They pulled all his records out of the county recorder's office and got them sealed in an envelope at the supervisor's desk so nobody else could see what he did. Yes.
It's been changed for over 100 years, basically. That what surveyor even knows what that is?
They all know it's on the maps. Yeah. They never lie. That's just right there. You have to tell them. If you just say, I want it surveyed, meets and bounds, they're going to use the current one. But if you tell them you want to use a San Bernardino meridian, like it's what we use here, because that's a mountain, you follow me? Based on the San Bernardino meridian. Or anything on the other side would be using the Washington DC meridian. Yes.
So in order to have allodial ownership of land, then it's sort of a geographic jurisdiction of the coordinate system you use to describe the land. You're saying here you need to use the Washington meridian, and
in California you would use the San Bernardino meridian, because the San Bernardino mountain doesn't move.
property meets and bounds still have that in it.
Yeah, but they're using the Greenwich meridian.
We call it San Bernardino meridian.
You're right.
Okay.
And there's not 1 square inch of land in America being taxed today. There's not.
Sure, right?
No, they're not taxing 1 square inch of land. No, they're
Imaginary land.
right. You know how they're taxing it? They're taxing assessor parcel lot number, a fiction.
Okay. All right, family. So that gave you a little bit of insight on what we're getting ready to go into, because again, remember, when we're talking about land, we're talking about owning land, but we're also talking about ancestral ties and memories that are connected to that land. So
All fiction, everything.
let's keep moving forward.
But change.
Okay. So with that being said, let's look at what the meridian line shift is about. Okay. So the meridian lines, like acupuncture lines on the Earth's body, were beginning to shift back into their original orientation, pre-colonial, pre-latitude, longitude overlays. The ancients tracked these lines through the stars. As the influence of different star systems began to radiate new frequencies on the Earth, i.e. Sirius, Orion, and the galactic center, it activated genetic memory in the heirs, those who are of the land by birthright and frequency. So mind you, again, They understood that California was getting ready to make a shift relative to the meridian lines that would have put the original people back on land. But based on maritime admiralty law, we are currently still in the seas, or quote unquote lost at sea through law. But because of this fire that took place purposely, what it did was it allowed them to now claim allodial title over this land after its destruction. But not only that, they remade up a new meridian line that then put us back into the seas because of the shift of the new influence stars that we're moving up under. Okay. So Washington, D.C. in the 10 mile square. So remember, the term he was using was surveillance. The drones in New Jersey weren't just surveillance. They were tracking energetic tremors and monitoring the 10-mile meridian line that runs through Washington, D.C. This area, originally established under Admiralty jurisdiction, functions as the head of the corporate legal system that governs the sea-based law, which is commerce, trust, and contract. With the meridian line shifting, DC's jurisdictional power was being threatened not by protest or policy, but by a cosmic and geomagnetic realignment. So again, for the family, this is evidence of our planet moving into a higher density of air, which denotes a higher, more refined version of information. Mind you, again, we live in a more refined version of water. And we're accelerating to a more dense level of water, which again denotes a higher level of information. But the physical body, which we're talking about land right now, which denotes the physical body, has to acquiesce to this dense level of energy that we're moving into in order to adhere to the frequencies that we're currently being bombarded with relative to the new influence of stars that we're currently moving up under. Okay, so these are a couple of articles that we had seen back when the drones were monitoring New Jersey. Mind you, they were monitoring